big shout out goes to Maxxis Tires, Jensen USA, and Fox Shocks for supporting the Inside Line. Welcome, mountain bikers. Why are you fasting right now, Dustin Adams?
I am officially sick and tired of being 215 pounds, and I want to get back to 185.
So what are you eating?
Nothing.
At all? Just water?
The best way to lose weight is to starve yourself. I don't care what anyone says. Diet schmaya, dude. You got to dive in headlong and go deep. 3-day fasts is I knocked over 18 pounds off just doing 3-day fasts. And running. Yeah, running is the other thing. I can cycle for like forever. It doesn't affect me. I can't lose weight. I'll actually gain weight.
Interesting.
But then I started trail running, and 40-minute trail run, hour-long trail run, and it just melts off. So trying to get healthy again.
What happens when you get hungry?
I don't eat.
So did you do anything?
No, I literally just did long 3-day fasts, and I'm eating minimal food and just crushing. And I actually feel like I have like really good energy and everything too. Yeah. I feel better.
What's the minimal food?
Cabbage.
Raw cabbage. I was picturing like almonds or something, but
no, I don't do it. Like, it sounds hardcore. It is pretty stupid.
Hardcore.
It's definitely on the upper end of stupid, but I'm getting results, so I'm going to follow through. Yeah.
Wow, that's willpower. I'll try to do that. I'll go for like 6 hours. I'm like, I know those Cheetos look pretty good. I have to dive in.
Yeah, it's when you have kids. That's the problem. I have kids, and I have this thing about like wasting, and like they wouldn't eat their food, and so I'm like, well, I can't let that waste, so I'd eat it, and then I just packed it on so bad it was like not funny, and I couldn't get rid of it. So I was like, okay, this is done. I officially put my foot down when I was in Europe this year, and I'm made a point of it. I had the time, no one bothering me, no one saying that's stupid, don't do that. Especially my wife, she would always be the one that's like, you're an idiot, what are you doing? Yeah, so I was left alone to do stupid shit, and that's what I did. And it worked.
Awesome.
wait, hold on. Why 3 days?
It's there's this one like doctor I've been following about fasting, like how to fast. I've always done it, like before this whole thing became popular of intermittent fasting. Normally I'd wake up, have a coffee, and I wouldn't eat till noon, 1 o'clock. But what I've found is that just resets. You're just now on a new routine instead of like eating breakfast in the morning. That's your routine. And yeah, long story short, she says switch it up, do a bunch of stuff, and if you want maximal results, 3 days is key. So I was like, cool. So it was like 3 days. 1 week, and then I would wait 5 days and then do another 3-day, and then 5 days and do another 3 days. So I did that 3 times and gone. So it was like how to lose 20 plus pounds in 3 weeks.
Yeah, crazy. That's gnarly.
Man,
it's a pretty good intro.
Yeah. Post Crankworks things. That's what everyone's gonna be doing.
Yeah,
3 day fast.
We're gonna set a new trend. Yeah, my new book drops. No. Life coach, life hacks by some idiot mountain biker.
No way. It's Dustin Adams.
Yeah.
Welcome, mountain bikers. It's the Inside Line podcast, coming to you from a condo in Blackcomb, Crankworks.
Whistler special.
It's early. Got those gravelly voices after, a couple days at Crankworks, but we've got Dustin Adams. You may have heard of him. We Are One, former World Cup downhill mountain bike racer. We'll talk about that. We've got Nate Schumacher. It's Schumacher, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Also with We Are One. Got Vlad. We're going to talk World Cup, your past, your history, get into We Are One, all the cool things you do.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be
Let's breathe over that history.
It's going to be a fun one. All right. Well,
Cole's notes.
I want to hear the full pull of,
okay.
Getting into bikes and doing all that, but, and eventually getting into that topic of, hey, you were crushing World Cups with Giant, and then next thing we hear, you're working on oil rigs. So
yeah,
I want to take us down that road, like how you got from, started riding bikes, where you live, where you came from, all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Always born and raised in Kamloops, obviously, and still live there. I tried to move away for a couple, thought I could move away in 2014, but I came back in 2 years. I went to Squamish for a short period there, but yeah, I grew up as a kid playing hockey like everybody else in Canada, and found out that you had to play as a team, and I was a horrible team player, so it was like I felt always held back by the other people. And then someone put me on a bike and was like, yeah, no one's saying stop or slow down. So I just took right to it. And it was like a massive motivator to push as hard as I could. And I got results, and I really enjoyed that. So my buddy's dad, Tony Perro's his dad, Henry, got me into racing. So he took me around and he showed me what the BC Cup was and a couple like these cool old school events that were around forever. Mainly cross country. This was like 1996 and 95. So all hardtails before V brakes and stuff like that. Even if, I guess, so what V brakes are, yeah. And then ended up doing quite well with racing in Canada, and ended up on a team that was running Giant in Canada that was supported there decently. Moved into the US side and started focusing on Norbas and doing the Odd World Cups, and then stopped.
How did the just stop?
I did. I just stopped. I was like, done.
How'd the transition from XC to downhill go? Because I know everyone kind of did everything back then. It was just lean towards downhill because it's more fun.
Easier.
Yeah, easier.
Yeah. I grew up in like the Canadian dominance, so like Roland Green, Chris Shepard, Seamus McGrath, Ryder Hessegel. Like Ryder and me were right in the same category for my upbringing, so I got this luxury of getting my ass handed to me every single weekend by Ryder. I did get him once, so I'd had him once, so it was great. It was out of the first round of the Canada Cup in '97. I beat him, and I'll never live that down. Like, I beat the guy that won the Giro when we were young. I always use that at the end, but so yeah, I was just kind of sick and tired of like always losing, and then I'd go do a downhill after that because I raced both as a junior, and I would win the downhill. So I was like, well, this looks like it's more advantageous. Let's head that way. And I liked the people more, and not that I didn't mind the training, but I just saw where it was going, and the competition at that time, I didn't realize it, but it was pretty dirty, and you would have had to have sacrificed so much for results, and it wasn't guaranteed, where I felt like downhill I could have a much better run.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And so you go from Canadian Giant to Giant Factory, or whatever they called it back then, and
yeah, it was like the U.S. factory team, or whatever you would call it, factory support-ish.
Yep.
Yeah, so Norba team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was good. A buddy of mine, Sean Jenkins, put in a good word for me. He was running the team up here in Canada, and he put in a word to the U.S. side. So Russ Okawa at the time, he's since passed away, unfortunately, but he's said, yeah, he'd take me and one of the girls on the team, Cassandra Boone, on. And it was like a internship, pretty much. We got a bike and didn't have to pay for like accommodations, and they flew us around and did the US Norbas. Pissed a lot of people off. I remember a lot of people upset that their jobs were tight, and they're like, these two Canadians are going to be hired by Giant. Like, what the hell is this about?
Yeah.
But the first round, I think it was third. I want to say third or fourth.
Mm-hmm.
But I was on the podium in the first round, and that was the immediate like, oh, maybe this guy actually isn't just like some Canadian free ride dude. He can actually rip on a bike.
Yeah, so, yeah. Because, I mean, all I can think of is Shams kind of is, Canadian downhill. Were there many other kind of upper level Canadian downhillers back then?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of competition up here. I mean, those guys like Andrew Chandro, Dave Watson, those guys.
Chandro,
I grew up in those days,
Dave,
right?
Jeez, okay.
Yeah,
yep.
And those guys ripped.
You're like the first one, right? I'm like, oh yeah, Chandro.
No, I'm
Watson,
long ways from the first one. I always looked up to those guys, and those were my heroes when I grew up in Canada. And Nick Andrew was pretty much a god to me, and still is. I respect him huge. He's been around forever, and he's done great things for Canadian downhill, and is now continuing to grow the sport through harvesting good talent through Trek and whatnot, which is awesome. And then like a guy named Rob Hewitt, who was at the time he would be like top 10 and top 15s in the Norbas. He was edging up there. He was riding like an orange for one of the U.S. distributors and doing really well, supported by Manitou. Trevor Porter. Yeah, there was a host of guys, like really, really fast guys up here that definitely pushed you hard for sure. It wasn't like a cakewalk, and I definitely wasn't the first one. I just got lucky and made some good results early.
Dude, it's not luck. Like, you're shredding and you're getting it done. But how'd your pro downhill experience go? Because, like we were talking about, like, you were doing pretty good. You were up there, like always see at the top. And
yeah, it was good. I mean, I enjoyed it. I recognized the opportunity as like a huge lift up for me as a career. Like in Canada, you would have never, like no one was getting paid to do anything. We were doing it for fun. The series was, it was like a good time to go out and be a peckerhead across the pond or on the other side of the country for 3 weeks. And that would be a great vacation. You'd do a couple of races and you'd go back and come back. But the minute I got on this team, I was like, this is my opportunity. This is my chance. I recognized it right away. And so I hired a coach that winter, trained my ass off, and was like more serious than I'd ever been. I ditched my girlfriend at the time. I did everything. I cut everyone out and went nuts. And then when I got down there, started taking off results almost immediately. That's when I was happy. It was fun. It was a good time. I felt like I was reaching my potential and still climbing. I still felt like I had a lot to go. I was maturing as a young adult. I was still 21, 22, 23, 24 when I was down there. And so, I left a lot on the table, but from what I did achieve, I'm happy with it. I'm content.
Yeah. What are some of your top results? Do you remember?
The best one ever for me is World Cup in Telluride. I was 4th there.
Yeah.
I had a really good run, and I was just like, I almost had it, but I think Steve won, and Fabian might have clipped me, and I forget who else was there. But it was that was my best result. I got 12th at Fort William, 10th or 12th at St. Anne. Second to Menara, more than Alec. That fucking guy was so fast. He clipped me a bunch on the Norbas. I was always like 2nd, 3rd, 5th, 4th, and I would never win one of those things. And I thought in Virginia one year, I was snowshoe there. I thought I could win that race, and I front flatted, and the course was like tailored to me. There was this long flat section, and it rained. It was so muddy, and you had to like gut yourself, and I was just like prime to win that one. And the rest of the course I loved, but came in like halfway down and front flatted, and I think I got like 16th or something like that with a front flat from like mid section. It was we were running these moose tubes from Michelin. And they didn't realize they had to like let the air out in the evening, like in between when it's inflated. You couldn't just leave it up. And they left it up, and I just hit a rock, and then like front flat into something. I just hit a rock and just boom, like the tube let go. So I was pretty bummed out about that. But
the system or whatever they called it back then.
That was like that was funny. I actually learned. I grew up in like the 90s thinking, what is this, and it was nothing. It was that moose tube. And they needed like a special place to inflate it. There was nothing special about it at all.
Crazy. It was always like this big mystery. What's in there?
There was a bunch of cool dudes like Leif Erikson and the guys Matt Timmerman. They were working at Michelin at the time. They were super rad to be around. It was a good time for sure. Yeah.
All right, let's get into it. Like I talked about a little bit ago, it's like, okay, new season starting. Hey, where's Dustin? I think he went to work on the oil rigs. Like, what? He's at the top of his game. Like, where'd he go?
Yeah.
Tell that story.
It was really tough, man. I was hit by a car in 2003. It was really unfortunate. I had like a really bad like back injury and broke my wrist, and wasn't having the best race season in 2003. It was actually kind of mediocre, but I was starting to turn it around. We also got in a massive team wreck, so we wrote the team truck and trailer off in between Virginia and Mount Snow that year. We literally like come up over a rise. We had the 40-foot trailer behind us and didn't stop at a stop sign, and like center punched another truck and trailer. Like we all like were seconds away from dying. If it would have went through, legitimately, we would have been dead. So like everyone's like, oh, concussion symptoms these days. Oh, you got to take a time off. Take 4 months. I don't care. No big deal. We support you. We were like, get back on your bike. You're racing. And
after that crash?
Yeah, dude. So it was like we finished Virginia, like a legitimate totaled off 2 vehicles, trailer and all. Go race St. Anne or Mount Snow. I think I was second or second or third in 2003. And then like PTSD, the whole like me and Rando were so sore we could barely get out of bed the next day.
I bet.
Tara broke her leg. My mechanic, like I woke up in the accident and the mechanic was like hanging out the door. It was gnarly.
Wow.
So like all that happened, and then we went Mount Snow and then St. Anne. St. Anne, I was like hating it and didn't want anything to do with it. I actually intentionally tried not to qualify. Of course, I qualified 60th. I'm like, so I like literally like went to my room and I'm like, I'm done. And Elka comes in, bangs on the door, and I end up getting 10th. So anyhow, I was like bad and good. So then fly home just before would have been Grouse Mountain, and got hit by a car training. So nuked myself, nuked the season, done. So I was okay. 03 was a write-off. They weren't super happy about it, nor was I. But I'm like, none of this is my doing. It's not like I'm out there sending it like for videos, breaking my legs and arms. You know, like this isn't out of my control. But there was no understanding from them there. And then 04, I came back with a vengeance, and I was on every podium but one in the Norba, and ended up second overall, second overall. And I was like, cool, so this is going to be good. My contract's up. We're all good. Everyone's getting re-signed. I'm like, okay, well, what's going on? And mid-December, they're like, yeah, we're not going to re-sign you. And like, that's sick. Like I have bought a house. I have a life. I'm like setting myself up financially. I've used this like launch pad to like take it seriously and put a lot of effort into it and go. And I'm still just getting started. And like, yeah, that's too bad. Have a good one. So I was like immediately furious, obviously, and I tried to reach out to like scrambling at that point. Everyone signed at this point, generally signed in August and whatnot. But Sean Hamadal from Mad Cats, I could go ride with Sam Hill. And he was going to give me a bike and I could pay for everything else. And I was like, nah, I just recognized right then and there, like once you get to a certain point in life, you're like, this is not feasible financially, and it's not smart for, you know, long-term growth and prosperity. And I wasn't going to go pay to ride a bike at that point. I didn't feel like I deserved that at that point in my life. You know, I wasn't trying to win. I was at the front-ish, you know, and on that spot. So I just did the hell with it. I quit. I sent out told my girlfriend at the time, like, I'm done. I quit right then and there, and I sent a message to Pink Bike, and I'm like, yeah, I retire and have a good one. And I was fucking mad. But I walked away from the sport probably very angry, and it took me 15, 20 years to get over that. Yeah. Man, it was very hard.
Don't blame you at all. Like,
yeah.
You were second that year, like the year before? Norba overall, which was
second or third. Don't quote me on that, but it was like I knew I was on the top 3 of the overall that year.
Yeah, and the competition was super heavy back then in those.
Yeah, I mean we had Kvark, Rennie, you name it. Go down the list.
Kirkcaldy was in there.
Kirkcaldy, Menard dropped in and waxed us a bunch. You know, like, you know, it wasn't easy for sure. It wasn't like you know, Hannah, all those guys. Yeah. So it was you know, Jared Graves, Sam Hill, Bryn Atkinson. You know, the lists were deep. Yeah. So. Yeah, it sucks.
And you really went and worked on an oil rig.
Yeah, I was earning a decent wage at Giant at the time, and I was happy, and I was even willing to take a wage cut. Like I could have negotiated if that was like something that was the problem, but there wasn't even up for that option. So I went from that. My brother was running an oil rig in Alberta, and we got on there and like almost tripled my salary overnight, and I went through really, really tough time with that. Like going from being like renowned and gaining some, not a fan base, but people always running into you, be like, fuck yeah, man, you're doing it. To like basically like, hey man, pick up that bag of shit over there and move it over there. And that's your new life. Like, I don't give a fuck who you are. So yeah, it was tough.
How do you make that transition? Like, obviously you just did because you knew you had to, but
I almost didn't. I went like full suicidal for probably 8 months of my life.
Did you really?
Yeah. It was heavy. So yeah, I did that, and like your whole being is invested into this, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Your what do you call it? Your
identity.
Your identity is this, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
So like you realize real quick, like, you don't have a lot of actual friends. You have a lot of people that are like, hey, this guy's got free shit. I like getting cheap shit, so I'm going to use him to get my free shit or cheap shit. So that goes away real quick. And then, I went through it was like 2 years of therapy to get over it. Really, really heavy shit. And just realized that I'm more than mountain biking. I'm more than a bike, but it still lingered. Like every time I'd run into people, I was always angry. Like I got fucked over somehow. So that took a long time to get over. That's still, even today, I'm like, there's something left on the table. Like if I could have, what would it have been? So that's almost impossible to get rid of. But I think the best thing that ever happened to me is getting married, having kids, and realizing that there's more to life than riding a bike. And it's a pretty cool life outside of there, and stepped away for like almost 15 years. Yeah. Completely.
It seems like kind of back then the idea of going to therapy, dealing with depression, things like that, it wasn't maybe as accepted as it is now. Like, how did you find your way into that rather than just wallowing in it and thankfully not taking your own life?
That was like just because of what was happening. So I was like kind of forced into it. So it was the car accident is actually where it all kind of funded it. Had that not have been there, like that wouldn't have happened. Okay. So the PTSD I was dealing with and the trauma I was dealing with from the car accident kind of like made the whole mess like happen for me. So they told me, like my lawyer booked me with a psychologist, and like 2 or 3 of them actually, and ended up finding one that was great, and just kind of walked through like all the baggage, and then walking me through like, okay, you're not a bike, and you're not this persona, and you're not this person. And it definitely wasn't. It's not like it is now. You can't just get help when you need it, and it's definitely not accepted and recognized like it is now. It was challenging, but super happy I did it. And if anybody ever is in that position, they should definitely go. Okay. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it worked out that way.
Yeah. So, no. You know, everybody has their challenges for sure. Yeah.
What made you want to come back into all this then? Like that seems like I don't know.
It's a long story. I mean, so went through all that mess. Had another, like I was like went from the rigs to the mine to trying to be a carpenter, just bouncing around trying to figure out what the hell I'm gonna do. And
this all in like kind of Kamloops area.
Like Kamloops. Yeah. I drove like a mining haul truck for 6 months, thinking that I'm gonna be a miner, and I was like, no, that's not gonna work. And ended up just winging it. It's like speaks to everything I've done since then. Is like was on a job site as a carpenter. These guys were installing granite and countertops at a job, and I was like, "Hey, what the hell's this all about?" I didn't even know it's a job. And like from Vancouver, they're the only guys in town. They come up twice a week, and I'm like, Just got on the internet, searched around, like, how is this done? And decided to go down to San Francisco and buy a saw and start a granite marble company.
Really?
Yeah. With no experience or know-how. So just wung it in. And
like you just brought material in and just
bought a saw, bought material, bought a place, and me and my brother started it together. And then of course we could never get along, so he left and went back to a real job in oil rigs, and I struggled with stone for 6 years, I think it was.
Okay.
And then we sold that. And then 2013, me and my wife and kids went and traveled around in Southeast Asia and whatnot, and kind of refound my purpose in life and whatnot, and made it an actual conscious decision to move to Squamish when we got back. Okay. And get back into the bike business.
Okay. What made you want to go to Southeast Asia? Just never been there, let's go kind of thing?
No, we'd been to Bali in 99. And we actually I went and worked in a stone shop thinking we would maybe immigrate to New Zealand. So we went down there and spent 2 months working at this guy's shop, figuring like maybe we would go down there and manage it. And it just wasn't what I envisioned, I guess. Okay. New Zealand's a great place, but like in 2 months, I felt like there was not enough country to see. I was like, we've driven the whole North Island. I've seen it all. And I've only been here for 2 months. I don't know if
like
I
island
live
fever
here.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. So anyhow, then we flew over to Southeast Asia and did like Indonesia and Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia, all of it. And cool. Just all through that, like drinking and eating and having fun and experience, it was like, I got to get back into this. I was just, the calling is too strong. Okay. But how, I wasn't sure. I didn't have any clue at that point. Yeah.
So how'd you get that clue?
Yeah, it's odd. Like we moved to Squamish, and I was like figuring out like how we're gonna do this. But in the meantime, I took a job selling stone for Caesar Stone, which is like a large Israeli-based multinational slab manufacturer. And I was their Canadian sales guy. And in the meantime, doing that in Vancouver, one of my customers put up a post on Facebook, something about them needing an operations manager at this company called Noble Wheels. So I reached out to Ryan and I'm like, what's this about? So I met Ryan and Trevor from Noble Wheels and didn't even know that carbon wheels existed, had no clue how this was, or it was even a thing. And
like you were just fully checked out of bikes. You didn't really.
Yeah, no, I had no idea.
Okay.
Like I hadn't ridden a mountain bike when I had my stone company. I didn't ride a bike for almost 6-7 years.
Wow.
Like didn't even have one. I came back and I bought a Pivot Mach 5.7.
Okay.
From like one of the guys I used to race for, one of the distributors here in Canada. And yeah, so I was like, oh, really? Carbon fiber for frames and wheels? Like, what's this all about? And yeah, we agreed to like come on. I bought into the company, took a kind of an operations / sales role, and yeah, really helped him grow from in his basement to being out there and leveraging my past and history to kind of like get that name out there and help them develop some product. And gave them some direction on what we should be working on, and went to Asia a few times and to the factories and kind of was like looking at things, looking around, and that's kind of how it started. Yeah.
Okay. What year was that? Do you know?
2015 and 16.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was good, kind of moonlighting through the Caesar Stone thing and doing that at the same time. I saved some good money, and houses in Squamish went through the roof, and the partnership was kind of tenuous at times, and I was at Interbike in 16, and the comment was made, and I was kind of like, I'm done. Like I'm kind of that person. I would very quickly just be finished and walk away from something, no problems at all.
Okay.
I said, I'd taken it from. I think it took the company from like $100,000, $150,000 in sales and working out of his basement to like full operation wheel builders, just over $1 million in sales in like 8 months. So it was like a pretty big amount of growth.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, well, just give me my money back. We'll call it square and we'll see you later. So I came back from that, sold my house and decided I'm going to make carbon rims in Canada.
Was that, had you been thinking about that at all, or was it just?
Yeah. I mean, I said to them when we came back from our second trip to Asia that, or no, it was the only trip to Asia, sorry, that I spent 2 weeks there at Light Bicycles factory. And I said, we need to think about bringing this over because we can do it better, I think, based on what I learned. So in the stone shop, I learned about CNC machining. I learned about running automated equipment, CAD, a lot of that stuff, like very not great CAD, not like modeling like Vlad can do it, but I can just do 2D CAD and then make revolves and design very simple stuff. And I was like, we should bring this back because I know we can control it and I know we can do better than that and cheaper. And I saw where the pain points were almost immediately in the operation because it was 6 years of manufacturing stone, had 20 plus employees. Like you go through the whole like SOPs, how do you get better? You go through processes, you learn about like making stuff. And it was just a disaster. I was like, there's a lot of improvement that can be made. And if we did it in Canada, we would have like a great story. And they were just like, no, you're crazy. This is what we're going to do. They had other plans and there was no alignment. So that's why we just, okay, fine. You go our separate ways.
Yeah.
So I had kind of thought about it. And then immediately when that was done, I'm like, I'm going full hog on this. Let's do it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't realize like all the kind of manufacturing process experience that you had and all that, but like cheaper, really?
Yeah.
And I don't know the ins and outs of what goes on to making something in Asia, but
yeah,
it just seems like default. That's where everyone goes. So how could you do it cheaper with having to pay labor here?
Well, I mean, at the time, so 2017 when we started We Are One, The common practice for carbon rims up until maybe even a year ago out of Asia was the rims were so poorly made with bladders that were so like not up to current technology that you would have to sand and paint over a bunch of imperfections to make a rim look good. And you'll still see that a lot where like a rim is like heavily coated and you can't see the carbon. It's like something's underneath there. So
they just like fill it with resin and smooth it out kind of thing?
Yeah, and so how that happens is the product out of the mold is such poor quality, they spend more time outside or post mold making the rim look good and doctoring it and sanding it and making whatever they got to do to get it to the customer so they'd approve through QC. I was like, we're going to cut all that shit out and we're going to make it perfect out of the mold. And if we can't make it perfect out of the mold, this whole venture is a flop. It doesn't work. I've factored it down to about 80% of the entire like cost of it, like their COGS is post mold. So
wow, really?
I'm like, if I can just make 100% of our operation at the front 20% that they do, we can do it cheaper. And the labor on the backside is insane. It's like the amount of people once a rim comes out of the mold at that time was ridiculous. Like multiple people in sanding, multiple people in drilling, multiple people in painting, like, and then 4 ladies laying up rims.
Wow.
So like if I only need 4 and I can get them out of the mold, what they see at the end, we have a win. Yeah, so my goal was to go with more accurate tooling. They use like at the time, and everything's changed, but at the time they used really, really poor, like low quality tools to make it. So like the actual metal tools that they used to bake the rims in was low quality, not really high grade steel or high tolerance.
Is it just cheaper to make those? Is that why they do it?
Yeah, easier? It's cheaper to make the tools, and I don't think there was anyone paying attention to tolerances at that time. Like I think things have changed. I'm sure things have changed, and I would like to say that we've helped move that along at We Are One, but all of it looked rudimentary and not really well paid attention to. And I was like, okay, well, we can make this mold here with a mill out of aluminum. The tools like heat up and cool down faster. Everything could be gained here. So let's go for this. And then the designs weren't up to date. You know, I thought there was a lot of things we could do there.
Okay.
Yeah. So had all that kind of brewing in the back of the head, and once there was no alignment moving forward with us as a partner, was like, I'm going to execute on this.
All right. So how'd you do it? How'd you get to the point where you knew you could make the rim good out of the box? Like, or, you know, like, I guess you kind of hit that tipping point of like, this won't be a flop. You can do it.
With lots of failing. Like financially, I started the company. I sold my house. I sold my trucks, my cars, my dirt bikes, my saws, my everything I could sell. And I had that much money to start a business with. And we moved back to Kamloops. We bought a shitty house that we still live in. My wife's very patient. Basically said like, okay, well, here's the plan. We need a mill. You didn't have to purchase the mill. There's great leasing companies. They would lease it to you for like a reasonable amount. I ended up touching base with an old customer of mine that had a cabinet shop. He had a really nice space that was great to do a startup out of and gave it to me for like basically nothing. It was like $4 or $5 a square foot, and he kept that for almost 4 years. Didn't raise the rent on me once. So Jack's awesome dude, and he supported us through that. And then hired 3 friends that I cycled with that told them like, this is my vision, and an engineer. So Fraser Andrew, he currently works at Fox Raceface as one of their engineers. He's a great, very smart kid. Came from Scotland, from Heriot Watt, which is like a prestigious engineering school over there. Had some time in the engine department at one of the Rolls-Royce.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, my 3 buddies that were like, we're going to have fun. We're going to make like 4 rims a day, and we're going to ride lots, and we're going to make millions. And then very quickly learned we were up like backs so far against the wall, and we didn't know what the fuck we were doing at all.
How come? Like, what were the first wheels like, or the first tools, or whatever you had to do first? Like,
So the first thing we did is we realized we don't have a machinist, and machining is an art. It's not. At the time, it wasn't like the CAD CAM programs weren't what they are now. They were good. They were getting better, but so we had to learn how to do that. Fraser was up to the task. He had done some rudimentary machining in the past and kicked off and did a decent job. So we made a straight mold, just a 12-foot section of mold. That was the rim profile we wanted to use, and we could put some carbon in and put it in our oven and see what happens. So we make this straight mold and we polish it all up, and we're like, okay, so carbon's made of resin. Resin won't stick to polished aluminum. There's no way. It can't. So
turns out it can.
Put it in there. We put it was a polypropylene bag, which is like the beginner 101 bladder, and made a really bastardized piece of shit rim. But then we take it out of the oven and it's like, oh, it's not coming apart. The rest had like coal chiseled it apart and like destroyed the mold, destroyed everything. And we're like, okay, so why did this happen? And it's like, oh, you have to put a film on there to mold release on there. And it was like, well, lesson number 1, that sucks. So back to the machine, make another mold, find out where you get this thing called mold release from. Yell at your carbon vendor and be like, why didn't you tell us? And then start all over. So it's like, there was like bladder technology, bladder processes, drilling. It was 6 months to the day we started the company. So we started the company January 1st. We had to do a month of like renovating to get everything in. And then once everything was in, it was 5.5 months of like ass handed to us 16, 18, 20-hour days, sleeping at the shop, trying to figure it out. And miraculously, we came in one day and we had this like epiphany we were down to like the bladder being the issue. And we found a certain process that proved to be repeatable, insane, but repeatable. And, we went with it and we made our first pair of good rims. We drilled them and we sent them to with Shane Jensen, one of my buddies, sent them to the first in BC Enduro race. Put them on, I think maybe 4 rims actually, and everyone's like knew this was happening. This wasn't a secret anymore. The word was out. And I guess he pulled up and everyone just started like peeling through the door and like, get me these things, like looking at him. He was like beating people off and he's like, get away, you can't see this. It was like prototypes. So we put them on 2 of our riders, I think it was. And the first one made it about 50 feet of trail and broke. And we're like, oh, and the other 2, I think we got like second in the race. And they was like, wow, these are sick. So we kept riding them. We're like, okay, well, it's not a total bomb, but we're making headway. Yeah. And then it came back. We've recognized, cut it apart, recognized some things, and just kept evolving. And then, like that only took us like weeks because we launched in June, and we were like, we had no rims in stock. We weren't quite fully there, but we're weeks away from being there. And by the time we got our first order, we could handle it. So website went live and we were like sitting there watching the order thing. And it was like 2 rims. It was the Agent 2.9 and 2.75, just 2 rims. And it was very basic. The design looking back at the time it was good, but it wasn't great. And I got a few orders, got some great customers and sent some rims out, and people were stoked and they were holding up and they were better than what was currently on the market. So we were fired up and we just kept improving every single day, because like every day you go in, you put carbon in the mold, you do the same thing and you figure out new ways to do it better and new laminates. And then you start doing testing and you're like, oh, we can even make it better and better and better. And then, just really just moved on from there. And once you're in it every day, you can make it better every day.
Yeah. Was the hook at the beginning that they were made in Canada? Like people were psyched on that, or was it because of you?
I think it was me. Yeah, the made in Canada thing obviously has always been one of our big like pillars. I know we wear that badge pretty proudly. and it was made by like riders. Like at the end of the day, we never wanted to use the for riders by riders tagline. It was pretty played out, but we definitely lived that. We were like a bunch of bike nerds that wanted to bro down and make good product and make better product than what we had known in the past. So it was pretty easy to do that. Yeah, easy to execute. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, people loved it. It was made there. A lot of our support came from North America for sure. And people were just fired up to see that it could be done as good and cheaper or better than what we're buying out of Asia. Yeah.
Let's try it, see what happens. I love that approach. That's so awesome. It made me a little stressful at the time, but
yeah, you got to wing it. You have to. There's no way. I mean, it was a big risk and I could have lost everything. Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, definitely got lucky. We had some great people help us along the way, and we continue to have an amazing team that's growing. And definitely not going to lay it as my claim, but it was, I took the leap and a lot of good people followed me. So I thank them for that.
Awesome. Yeah. One of the questions I had was just, Kamloops is pretty remote, just getting the right people to work there. Were they in town? Did you have to bring them in? Like, are they acceptable or accepting of going there?
Yeah. I mean, Kamloops is like it's the largest city in the north of Vancouver, but I guess the largest city in kind of, what is it named?
Largest 100,000 people.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's the largest city in the north.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go north of that to Prince George, which is like way north, it's half the size. So we have a decent population base. It's a blue collar blue collar working man's town. And I didn't think it would ever be what it is today. But at the time it was easy to find people. Yeah. Okay. I mean, we went from 5 of us to 20 of us in 3 years. And we never struggled to find people that were like, you're making bike parts. And so most of the people that started in the company were like avid cyclists or mountain bikers that were stoked to make bike parts.
Cool.
Yeah. And then from there, once you start to scale, then we've obviously, like everybody in the world right now, struggling to find people and good people, but we've got an amazing crew now that really, really hauls ass and does a great job.
Cool.
Yeah.
So Kamloops had a bit of a heritage as well in biking already at the time.
Yeah.
There's a scene there. It was 4 hours from everything. It's a great little spot.
Yeah. No, the imagery of Kamloops kind of made free riding what it is,
Yeah, the free ride capital. Yeah. I think everybody used to call me Free Ride Freddy.
Freddy.
Yeah, it was like a joke.
It rhymes.
Got no respect from Kamloops.
So how'd you progress? You're finding success with wheels. You're just like, let's make more stuff. Let's make more wheels.
Yeah.
Products.
It always changed from wheels, and we made iterations, obviously. Like we had started off with the Revolution line and added a couple rims to that, and then we moved into the new, or I guess our Revolution line, with the Union and whatnot. And we ran that product line for quite a while. Those were some ideas I had with Fraser at the time about like wider rim lips and stronger laminates, and focused on durability more than weight, and wanted to accentuate the actual benefits of carbon instead of like, oh, if you hit it on a rock it breaks. It's like we could do better than that, and we knew we could. So we just kind of took that angle and just kept chugging along on like the durability. We're never like the weight weenie kind of people. And doing that really proved that there's a segment there that people want a super strong rim that's going to last. And I think we delivered more than a good rim for that, for sure. But yeah, like process improvements all the time. We made a bar and a stem with a company out of like Giacomo from 77 Designs, a cool German dude that came to us with an idea, and we were like, well, let's iterate on it. And we came up with a few changes collaboratively, and we made that together, and then we improved on that again with Vlad. We took the original bar and then changed it a bunch and made it look better and proper sweep and whatnot. We learned a shitload that way. And then, the bike was always in my periphery. I wanted to do it. It was a big challenge and a big like desire of mine, because that's kind of like the pinnacle. And Vlad reached out to me on Pink Bike looking for a set of rims when he built the Sequence. And I didn't really think much of it at the time because he's an ocean away, and I was like, yeah, cool, we'll send you some rims and good luck to you kind of thing. And then I saw the bike on Pink Bike and like my jaw hit the floor, and I was like, this is more than just a guy that wants a set of rims for a bike. This bike is the real deal. So sent him an email, and I'm like, we need to do a bike together. We need to get together and do this.
And like that's how you got the gig?
Yeah, we basically actually it was on Instagram that we started chatting, and we were just chatting for about like 6-7 months, and eventually one day he was just like, "What are you doing in the UK? Like, do you want to come over? Let's make another bike." And it took me I realized that my passport has expired, so I just went to Bulgaria, renewed my passport, and I was like 4 weeks later, I was like, I'm on a plane.
To Kamloops.
To Kamloops, yeah. And, yeah, and he just picked me up with a Sprinter from the airport, and yeah, we just talked about like bikes and wheels and everything that we do right now. Actually, in that first span of like 3 hours from the airport,
Yeah.
and we just proceeded to do it. Like, and we pulled the first triangle in about like 6 months, and that's when I had to go back to the UK and sort out all the visas and everything. So we pulled the front triangle in the first 6 months, and that was like, we still have the first triangle built as a bike, and we ride it.
Wow.
And yeah, and that kind of gave us the confidence to keep going and pushing. But it was just me, you, and Gilles in the beginning. It was like 3 of us, and that was it. We made a bike with 3 people. And then
That's awesome.
we realized, okay, we need engineers, we need more people, we need to actually get all, because the amount of work that was there, it was insane. We just, again, pulling like 16 hours 6 days a week, and we barely rode. And yeah, we grew the team, and now we have actually way more bandwidth, and that's why you guys see all the bikes and everything coming up. But yeah, it was fun. We're here.
That's so cool. Like, I saw a bike you made, and like, yeah, you come over here. And then
Yeah.
that you came, you're like, all right, let's do it.
When you see the bikes out there now, it's like, it's pretty awesome to watch. It's to make a bike, like you can design a bike, you can put it in CAD, you can send it to somebody and make it for you, is one thing. But to learn the nuances, the benefits, the negatives, the strength, to hit all of the points you need, the tolerance stacks, the machine parts to carbon parts, the way the carbon performs in and out of the mold, everything that you need to do there, how the head tube ties up to the down tube and the top tube without ripping off, like the bottom bracket seat mast. Like, there's a lot of things that you need to learn in a very, very quick manner, and there is absolutely no manual on how to do it. So for us as a team, to do what we did, I don't think, for the amount of money we put into it and the amount of manpower we put into it, I don't think it's ever possible again, if I'm honest. Like, it would be very impressive for a team to do that without a massive amount of funding. Yeah, or just more stupid, what do you call it, like bravado or ego, or I don't know what was motivating us at the time, but it was probably a blend of all of that. You have to come to the table with something special. Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah,
Can you talk about the bar stem package
yeah.
that you do and like why you do it the way you do?
Yeah, it was so. The original concept and the idea was Giacomo's, so I'm giving him full credit for it.
Okay.
He came to us saying he wants to put a sleeve over top of carbon to protect it, and he had this stem design that he currently and still sells. And he says, I want you to make the bar because you kind of know what you're doing. So we looked at it, me and Fraser, and we said, well, the sleeve will rotate and move. Let's put a nipple on the carbon so we can actually center the sleeve, and we can make it, stay in place. And it is smart to like put a truly round spun part over top of the carbon, so the tolerance stack is perfect. You're like round to round. It's concentric part, as close as you can get. I was like, I like that. It's protecting it. There's a smart idea there. So that was kind of like we shared that, and I said, well, you do your ID on your stem and we'll do our ID on our stem, and we'll make our stem in-house. You make your stem wherever you want to, and we'll just make the bar in Kamloops. So we went to, designing the bar and the stem together. Why we call it the package and whatnot is that the actual unit behaves the way it like the way it's made, it needs to be together. So the bar, if you look at the stem, it's very boxy. It's boxy for a reason. You want it to be laterally very, very stiff and rigid so that the carbon layup in the bar can perform the way you want it to. If you have a tolerant stack of flex from the bar and the stem, you don't actually see the net benefit, and you can't feel it as well, because you're wondering, well, what are you feeling? Are you feeling stem flex, steer tube flex, head tube flex, or are you seeing actual bar flex? So we had to isolate the bar, and that's why the stem is. And a lot of people are like, well, it looks ugly, but it's like, it's purposefully built. It has a purpose. And yeah, I can't make it any other way because then it loses the purpose. So we struggle with that product. It's our absolutely shittiest product that can't sell for some reason, because for whatever reason, it doesn't look cool. It doesn't have colors. But at the end of the day, that bar is tested well beyond downhill standards. We have a very, very unique way of laminating that bar on a mandrel and process that we know is like absolutely flawless. We have no risk or concern about it. And it's actually laminated in a way that the carbon isn't in like a single strand from one side to the other. It's actually from the center out. So the left and the right behave identical in flex than just a standard long strand fiber, where it might behave a little bit different depending on where the carbon's pinned or not pinned. Okay. So the process that goes into that thing is what drove us towards making a bike. Like, we learned so much from making that bar that like the bike is like it's actually relatively easy when you get into the tubular structure. And the bar itself, we know tests at was one of the most compliant bars, if not the most compliant bar in the market. So we just don't have a cool shape, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
You got anything right now?
I guess one question I have with the bar is, you know, like we had 31.8 for a while, and then everything went 35 bore, and then your guys is just 33. Is that right?
The bar itself
and then
is 33.
Yeah. How'd you guys decide on that? Because I feel like everybody was told we went to 35 for carbon originally. I'm just curious, like, why you chose that diameter.
Definitely, like, the original concept behind it, which we've learned isn't really that important, is that to go from 30 to 30, there's like an in-betweener. So we thought, if we go in-betweener, we would gain the benefits of flex, and it wouldn't be so rigid. But we've learned it's actually not that. It's laminate. You can make the bar as wide as you want, or as thick as you want. You can make 40, 50. You can still make it flexible. It's just how you design the laminate and what fibers you use. So we've come full circle on that thought, and we've just kept it that way now because it fits in stems, and we're going to be introducing a new sleeve where we can use it on everyone's stem and kind of like making it more robust or at least for everyone to try. Cool. Yeah. So I'm kind of done selling a system, you know. If no one wants to believe in the system and try the system, fine, then just try the bar or the stem. I don't care. Okay. Like, at least then they can, I shouldn't say I don't care. At least then they can enjoy what we've done on their bike. Yeah.
Okay. And you've got the cool prototype downhill test mule for downhill components. It's not a downhill bike they're going to sell, to make that pretty clear.
Yeah.
The next step and where you're going is just keep developing new parts and products.
Yeah, so we're going to position We Are One in definitely a heavily component focused company here pretty quick. We've got a lot of components that we can make, we believe, better than anybody else, and we want to push hard in that, and we needed a platform to test those components on. So if we're like anything we do, like the barn stem, if we can't control what we're testing it on and we don't know what we're feeling, and we can't isolate it, we're not actually getting the best results. So because we made our own bike. It's just that simple. I mean, we needed a platform that we could ride, we could appreciate, we could become familiar with, and when we wanted to push it to the limits, we know we had a platform that we're able to do that with. So that is going to drive forward a real, like, very specific downhill wheel set. We got we soft launched or soft released, I guess, the new downhill stem, the direct mount. We're working on a bar that's specific to downhill, and other products that will accommodate downhill as well. So So that's a really fun engineering exercise. We also learned a ton about laminates in the area. The shock tunnel is a very challenging part to make. So we've learned a lot through that process. And it also creates an interesting thing where, that's an arrival front end. We didn't have to make the whole frame. It's actually a subsection. So can we then be better and efficient at our future bikes where we we have a front end for all bikes, be it trail, enduro, or downhill, or cross country. It's all the same mold. And then we just do our unique subsections in the middle, and we can become more efficient and better at making frames and cheaper, and so that we can start to drive our costs down and efficiencies up. So it's a great exercise and a tool for that, for sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Plus, I need a downhill bike. I didn't want to buy one.
The truth comes out.
Yeah.
Okay, Vlad, can you just make this real quick?
Yeah.
You mentioned the challenges of like the shock tunnel and all that, but the way like the shock mount interfaces with the carbon and some of that, was that hard to do? Because it looks like you have those, kind of those machine pieces. You can tweak them at will as long as they fit in there. You can change all the different kinematics and things, right?
Well, everything is adjustable on the bike, so we can independently adjust the leverage ratio from the anti-squat, anti-rise, and the geometry. And each one of them we can adjust them individually. And we've only done this with a 4-bar. The reason why like most of the brands are going down with a 6-bar, because it's actually even easier to dissect that. Less things affect the whole system, and you can adjust each one individually. But we've already worked with the 4-bar platform like for a while, and shortening the links even more compared to the arrival or even the sequence before that, because you can see the similarities with the sequence. We have enough room to basically make any leverage ratio we want, and adjust the anti-squat and anti-rise within reason. But we have like a huge range to play with and have an understanding. For example, how does 10% of anti-squat more feels or less, and how does this connect with it's pretty much, the way I try to explain it is like it's not just about the individual components, but for example, you have nice audio equipment. You know how you have crossover between the high, mids, and lows. You don't listen to just the highs or just the mids. Mm-hmm. You adjust the crossover point between the frequency. So you have frequency crossover point, and it's the same thing. So for example, where does the leverage ratio is supporting you, where is the anti-squat supporting you, and how does your braking works in that whole system, and how does the kickback punch in eventually, and where does your bottom bracket sit at the time, what is your steering geometry at any time. And it's basically for example, it's like having 6 speakers and adjusting the crossover between 6 speakers. That's the best way to describe it.
Okay.
It's not just the leverage ratio, it's not just the axle path, and fine-tuning all that and having an understanding how everything works together, that's kind of what we're going to do with that bike. And it's just having a better understanding. So when we want to make, for example, a quick bike for that trail or a quick bike for that trail, it's at that point it's just you just tune this one in, tune this one down, and you have the recipe, and that's it.
That's cool. That's cool.
So it's just 6 dials and how much you turn of each, and you don't hear any static or any noise, and that's it.
All these years, and that's the sickest explanation.
I was gonna say, yeah,
you got dials, just tune it right there.
Yeah.
All right, there you go. All right, Nate, you've been there 3 months.
Yeah.
What's
Going on 3 years.
how's it been for you? What have you learned?
That's been super fun. My background in biking is hobby. And so I've learned a hell of a lot about manufacturing, what's possible when you do everything in-house. The fact that Vlad can sit here and say that he wants to adjust something, it's true. We have the machining capability, and he can say, I want this here and that there, and in a day the parts are there and bolted on, and he's out riding. So it's been super cool I'll call myself an outsider, to be able to sit down and look at what We Are One's able to do quickly and purposefully. So it's been really, really fun. And some of the stuff we're talking about getting into componentry and expanding that line is like, there's so many opportunities, and it's endless. So I'm in a great position. It's been a blast so far.
Yeah. Cool. All right, and Dustin, you said that, Nate came in from the skate world. You didn't necessarily want someone already in the bike world to come in. So
yeah, we want somebody fresh perspective. I've always been, fond of skate and snow. It was always what we looked up to. I mean, when I was, 96, there was a snow company called United, and they were big in snow, and they were like core with like RDS. A couple of like the Sluggo's brother worked there and whatnot, like Dave Boyce and these guys. These guys were hard fucking core. Like they were like very intimidating. And I walked in there because I wanted mountain biking to have like a proper look and feel, and I convinced Don, the owner, to like do a mountain bike brand called Iden, but it had a very like skate feel to it. So like I went looking for that because I do believe there's like a unique image that we could go after and chase that was never really successfully done. And when Nate came from Land Yachts, it was like a slam dunk. I'm like, yeah, we need that fresh perspective that doesn't come with the typical mountain biker
not
vibe.
Jaded yet.
Yeah, not jaded yet. Yeah. 3 months. I don't know if you can hear it in his voice, but he's becoming nervously.
after Crankworks.
One of my first week I slacked Dustin. I was like, what brands inspired you? And it was like, RDS, Forum, DC. And I was like, wow, okay. Those are all like in my quiver. And we went down the rabbit hole of like RDS, FSU, and like all these videos and stuff.
Like old Mac Dog days.
Exactly. So that's kind of where I pull inspiration from.
Cool.
Yeah.
Are you hoping with your component expansion, like is OEM something that you'd hope for in the future? Or you're just going to do one-off stuff? Like,
yeah, I mean, that's a big push for us is get into that. There's a lot more potential there for us, and I feel that we could be very good at it. And right-sized for it. There's a lot of benefits for us manufacturing in North America that OEMs would appreciate, and there's taxation benefits, there's shipping benefits, there's the sheer green aspect of it. We actually are less impactful in what we do when it comes down to it. We're definitely see that as a big win for us and a big potential. So I'm going to dig in hard and go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, more people need to be on a We Are One product. It's like, why would you put something else on when the benefits are so strong? And there's a warranty program in place that's unparalleled.
I think we're done proving that we make good product. I think now it's like we need to get out and get it on a lot of people's product, like under more people so they can appreciate it as well.
Yeah. We can't make enough bikes to get wheels out under people, so go to someone who can and put our wheels on them.
Do you feel like COVID helped bigger brands see that overseas has its glitches and its hangups? Like if something, the supply chain hiccups, but I mean, if you guys are here, maybe you could help alleviate that.
I couldn't say that I would lie if I wasn't sitting there going like, yes, it worked. I relished in it a bit, but it's exposed some major weaknesses in the supply chain and how things operate. And during COVID, it only helped us to be positioned where we were. We never had any delays. We were behind based on like sheer demand and capacity that we had in place, and so we were limited by facilities. Like facilities held us back until last year. But had we had that in place at the start of COVID, we would have quadrupled what we would have made during COVID.
Wow, really?
Yeah. We were just like when we were going through COVID at the boom, we had 2 ovens and we were operating out of like 2,200 square feet for the manufacturing facility, and we've just fired up in June 21 or June 22. We moved into a 35,000 square foot like 8 oven
from 2,200 to 35,000.
Yeah,
it was time to grow.
Yeah,
I guess.
Like that was just the manufacturing. So in context, we had 5 facilities spread throughout Kamloops, but the actual carbon laminate facility was in 2,200 square feet and struggling. We had run 2 shifts out of there. We were maximizing every hour we could. The culture was in the shit because it was like, I didn't want to have shift workers. This wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to go like ride with my people and have fun and have them enjoy what we're doing. So it was really hard for everybody, but now we were in that space. And if we had that, it would have been insane at the time. We would have been way, way bigger.
We have a bit of an open door policy too. If anybody comes and visits, we'll show you what we do and how we do it. And what it's all about. Yeah, we do tours all the time.
Is the layup and the cured, is that the most time intensive part of it all?
Like for the rims, it is. Yeah. It's pretty quick once it's out of the mold in the rim. For bikes, it's not. It's that's where I've heavily undershot what we need to do for paint and prep and all that stuff outside of the mold. We're learning that, getting our asses handed there for surely. It's very, very, very labor intensive outside of that. Not so much like I talk about the rims, like doctoring and all that stuff, but just like you take a bike, it's way different than sanding a rim. And you got to keep, it's not like we're sanding way through, but you have to prep it to get tooth to go in, so it's like you don't want it to stick into the mold, but now that you've put that product on, now you have to remove it so the paint will stick to the product. So you're kind of like, oh, damn. So, and then the actual paint process itself takes time. Like it's like, bonding in our pivots, bonding in everything, making sure everything's accurate, tolerances are in check. The paint quality is where we want it to be, and we're vicious about that. Like we really, really, really are trying our best to paint the bikes to the highest degree we can, and the outcome is immediately, that's your first reaction from your customer. This is the first thing you get to see. So if it's not perfect, we just lose right away. So that's something that we're working on all the time. But molding is generally where most of the time is spent on the rim side. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Got anything?
Can you touch on what you guys have planned component wise in the future, or like? Yeah, I know you mentioned like carbon bar, carbon wheels, but anything outside of that, or anything not carbon?
There is. We work with some fantastic vendors right now on the hub side. Industry 9 is our great partner. We make rims for them. They make hubs for us. They play to a certain subset in the market, which is great. And we love their products, and we will always use their products and support them. But it would be advantageous to us not to get into the hub market. We would be missing a big opportunity there. And I think even though their product is, again, I say it's amazing, we would aim to the robustness, bulletproofness, not worrying about weight hub. And I think there's room for that in our arsenal. And I think that we would leverage them to have them help us make that. So those discussions are happening. Carbon bar and stem improvements for sure. Aluminum, getting into more machining. Cranks is always on the table. We've always been like, we got to get into cranks. But we just didn't. The bikes eat up so much of our development time now. So that will be a big push.
Would cranks be carbon or aluminum? Carbon. Okay.
Yeah. We firmly believe that there's a much better way to make a carbon crank than currently the market is seeing. Yeah, for sure. And I think we'll be pushing hard in that direction. Yeah. So,
can you say what about that? Like,
well, I don't want to,
because people have a lot of fears of carbon cranks, and
there's a lot of people that have had failures and miserable failures. There's visual, failures that we are all well aware of that have happened at inopportune times to very high level people, and there's also a lot of bad injuries that come from that as well. So there's a lot of things that happen there, but the process, the bonding, or the lack of bonding, the co-molding, stuff like that's happened in the past and still continues to happen, and being said like, oh, now we figured it out, we can co-mold this in and it's awesome. It's like, that's still like co-molding aluminum to carbon fiber is the worst thing you can do to carbon fiber. It's aluminum expands exponentially in the mold, and when you heat it up, there's a good bond, but it shrinks then. And then what? And that's the end then what that we've seen so many times. So is there a way to get around that? Absolutely. Has anybody done it? No. Who's going to do it? Us. It's like the bike industry falls into this rut, and there's creative minds out there that are doing amazing things at small scale, but not a lot of them get paid attention to. And there's some really, really cool companies that are very small, especially in Germany right now. Germany's really pushing the end. There's some cool stuff in the US happening, but through COVID, what it's done is it's allowed these people to kind of come up from underneath the soil. They're little plants now. They're all there. And if you're paying attention, there's some very, very creative minds out there that are doing some super cool stuff. And that's what I love to see those people flourish. And I hope those people make it and don't like just sell out because they can make some money or some big company comes and buys them. I really do hope that they push what they have to the market and make it better, because it's only going to make everyone else need to raise up and do better. So, yeah.
If a big brand came to you and offered to buy you, would you sell it? Not to put your jobs on the line, I think.
You know, it's really hard making stuff. So would I selfishly sell my company for some benefit and upside for myself personally? Yeah, I would have a hard time not looking at that. But would I exit the company and not want to control it and push hard and do something amazing with proper funding and proper backing and not having to worry about money ever again, and just be given a budget to like really kick ass and make it what it could be way faster and get the best investment behind it? I think I would do the company and everyone internally a disservice if I didn't look at that and push hard to get that. Am I actively pursuing it? No, it would have to land in my lap. So I'm really happy with what I have right now, and it's heading in the right direction. And I'm not pursuing this to be sold by any means. Yeah. So it would have to be like out of left field and be like, oh shit, I didn't know that was even a thing.
Yeah. Is it all yours? Do you have like partners, investors, or anything?
I have an investor.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So I have one investor. So
nice. Talk about the name. Where'd it come from? Because it's not your typical mountain bike brand name.
Yeah, so like skate, I wasn't going to do anything typical. I wasn't going to come out with like a one word thing. It's my wife has named all my companies.
Oh, really? So, that's awesome.
Yeah, we generally sit down and we just riff on things, and she's brilliant that way, and God bless her for that. But we were talking about like how does an inclusive, fun, like hardcore looking kind of brand make carbon fiber parts? So we started with that. We're still going back and forth, and said, well, carbon is a bunch of layers, so it's like it's a we. So it's not just one layer, it takes many, many, many layers. So that's the we part. And then, well, it goes into the mold and it like gets bonded together. So that's the R part. It becomes one. So we are one. It was like a play on what carbon fiber could be. So you take a bunch of things, make it into something, and then making it inclusive to be like, if you buy into this, I think a lot of people would say this now, you buy into this cult, you're in it for good, and we'll support you and love you like a brother. And that wasn't intentional. I never expected it to be like that, but I feel like it's got that awesome cult following that I would always have hoped for, like a true like RDS skate kind of vibe. So I love that about it. So yeah, it wasn't deep. It was purposeful, and it worked out really good.
But it works on so many layers, like your carbon.
Yeah.
And this was kind of one of the things when actually back to when I got those rims from Dustin for the sequence. It's I was actually looking for, because I made the bike handmade, and I was looking to put as many components which are made by somebody that I know the face of, because most of the bikes and components that we see out there, you don't know who made them, you don't know who designed them, you don't know where they're made, and for me that was kind of the hook, getting that set of outliers. That was from the first generation of the rims, and those rims are still assembled on one of the sequence bikes back in the UK. They're still alive, they're still ridden, and that was the hook. And seeing a face and seeing actually the few faces that were in the company, and there was like actually a few good videos that you guys made in the beginning. The guy with the hat doing the drop test, and so that was, for me, it was the instant connection that those are actual people. It's not just a processing plant for something that you put on your bike or a bike, and it is the maker to maker connection. which still exists and which still pushes us to do things forward. When we're like sitting in doubt and it's like, why are we doing this? Well, we like making stuff and we came into it as as makers, and yeah, that's it. It's we're
and to like continue on what Vlad's saying, like if you pull your rim tape off, you'll see the signature of the person who hand laid it up. And the people in our factory take great pride in that. We often see comments of people being like, oh, maybe I made your rims, or like team riders, when they do well, people are stoked because they made the product so that those people can go out and do what they love to do. Our bars are the same. They're like tucked up in the inside the bar. You can see who actually laid it up by hand.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. One thing Dustin told me when I first came on too, that you kind of glazed over. Part of the We Are One is that everybody who's a part of the company is driving towards one common goal. And together, by kind of pushing forward and making constant little improvements, we're actually improving the whole thing. Okay. And everybody plays a part in that.
And that's like where the like really hard Russian imperialistic like communist logo comes from. I'm serious.
I love it.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a future for like fully domestically made bikes, or just North America even?
Yeah,
like
all parts?
Yeah, I know. Like,
and
tires might be tough, but it seems like it's getting close.
Yeah, the only thing that's missing is I guess now it's spokes used to be made in I believe Utah, or like Wheelsmith. They've since I think closed that factory.
Okay,
but so hubs are, rims are, headsets are, bearings aren't. Chris King, I guess. We could go Chris King. Yeah, we could use his bearings and his parts. Cranks are, chain rings are, chains aren't. Rear suspension is en masse. There's lots of them. Like lots of that happening. Forks aren't yet. Very close. I would say. Well, no, I guess Darren is there.
Yeah, Jason's written it.
Yeah,
So.
Darren is there. That's right. So forks are now. Tires aren't, and then you're down to rear cassette, derailleur, shifter.
Yeah.
Dropper maybe. No,
probably no dropper.
No, the guys that 9.8 started in Canada, I guess. So it could be.
Okay.
I don't think the technology's that far out that it couldn't be. Yeah. But yeah, I see it. I mean, it would be. I go, Lau bikes. Put on that hyperdrive that he made. Takes care of the SRAM Shimano situation.
Okay.
There you go. Made in Canada bike, made in North America bike. It's fully possible aside from tires and spokes then.
Okay.
Yeah. If you really dig into it, it would be a funky ass looking bike, but it's doable.
You could make it work. Yeah. But I don't know, like 10 years ago, you wouldn't have, you'd have had two products that would have made it, you know?
Yeah.
5 years ago when we started the company, 7 years ago when we started the company, it was like we were like us, Envy. It was a very, very empty space. So in 5 years, the amount of explosion we've seen is really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as much as people hate Donald Trump, I would say that dude helped that out big time in the U.S.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe the only good thing you could say, but
small thing.
I'm not here to judge. I'm not getting into politics.
Close that door real quick.
What are your thoughts? Yeah, this has been fun. Is there anything you want to touch on that we haven't talked about or anything, or do you have any more?
No, you've done a pretty good job.
Yeah.
Let us through.
Yeah, it's good to tell the story. I mean, I appreciate you guys giving us the time to kind of like share the We Are One vibe and talk about the history and whatnot. And thanks for having us on.
Yeah, I'll be stoked to see what the next 20 years brings from. I don't know if you got to see them, but I sent Nate photos from back in the day. And there's one, I think, at the Calgary race. You're like picking your nose or something. I'm like,
oh, really?
That was like 20 years ago. And here we are now. So, yeah. Cool to see what you're doing.
That's sweet.
Yeah, I would love to go through some of those catalogs. There's got to be some beauties.
Shin pad, knee pad.
Moto pads, yeah.
Yeah, I might have accidentally sent a rando photo thinking it was you. Did you guys get confused all the time? Like, your kids were close
me and
enough
Rando looked a lot like when under the goggles.
Yeah.
He would have like the hockey hair hanging out the
totally.
back, and that would be the only differentiator. Other than that, we did look very similar. Big, huge, bushy eyebrow, Italian-looking guys.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much. It's been good to hear your story. I'm glad you're all in a good place right now. And so,
Yeah, dude, it's good to catch up. It's been a long time.
yeah, look forward to seeing
Likewise.
what you do.
Oh yeah. Just looking at that photo.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, I think that was a Calgary 4-cross. Or
Yeah, it was.
Was it dual back then? I don't know, whatever.
God,
yeah.
I hated 4-cross.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
A big shout out goes to Maxxis Tires, Jensen USA, and Fox Shocks for supporting the Inside Line.